Welcome back to San Antonio Living. Of course, you've seen Claudia Zapata, our dietitian, on the show talking about healthy choices and changing up your diet for the better. Well, Claudia is married to former Spur and Fox Sports commentator Sean Elliott. So the last time I was at her house working on a nutrition segment, I cornered Sean for a little San Antonio Living sit down. Take a look. Well, this morning we are chatting with Sean Elliott. I'm super excited to be in your man cave.
That's right. Yeah.
Thanks for having us over here.
My little hideout.
I love it. I love it.
You can't tell anybody how to get here.
Okay. Well, don't worry. I got lost, so it won't be getting out. That's for sure.
I had to blindfold you on the way out.
Well, tell me a little bit about this room that we're in.
This is my vanity room. This is where I have to go after I get humiliated by my crew and by Tim Duncan and Monta Ginobili. When they throw their sweats on me and stuff like that, I got to come back here at night after the games and kind of remind myself that I was a good player one time. So I come here and it cheers me up.
Is that hard, actually, watching those games and critiquing, talking about the guys? Because you were in that position once.
No, I love it. And, the biggest thing for me is I just try to take the fans a little bit more inside the game and explain some things because, I think fans and sometimes the media, they get the wrong perception of what goes on out there on the court.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in a lot of hype and say, oh, it's Tim Duncan versus Kevin Garnett. No, not really. It's the village versus Kevin Garnett.
Yeah.
And that's how we've always been here in San Antonio. So it's nice to kind of explain that to the fans.
It's so true. It's not one person, especially here in San Antonio. It is the whole team. And I think that's why San Antonio loves their Spurs so much.
That's right. I agree. It's a blue-collar town. And I think people appreciate how hard, what hard work does for you and how tough it is to bring a lot of people together and work as a team and, accomplish something together. That means more than anything individual.
Absolutely. Okay, so what do you like better? Do you like being out there on the court or do you like being behind the camera and talking about what's going on?
Well, obviously I like being on the court. That gets your juices flowing, but you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And every time actually that I've tried to play basketball in the last 5 years, even when I try to demonstrate at clinics, I come away with something, a little twinge, a big twinge, something to back the knee. It's just ridiculous at times. So I don't try to play basketball too much anymore.
Okay, so if you were taking on Tim and Tony, how would that work out?
It would work out with me leaving the floor on a stretcher.
We can hope that there's only one day where you all get back together and do some sort of, wouldn't that be great to bring all of the old Spurs back together and have like a special, it would need a special name for that kind of competition.
Yeah,
we'd have to come up with something.
Reunion wouldn't quite fit the bill, especially with some of the old guys.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, it's like Waking the Dead.
It is.
The Walking Dead, there you go.
All right, so here's the deal. I'm a girl, I love my sports, but I don't know all that about sports. So I asked my husband, who's like a freakish fan, I'm like, Travis, I need some questions for Sean.
Yeah.
So these are questions from Shelly's husband.
All right.
Okay, you ready?
All right, great. I'd like to hear these.
All right, here we go. Sean, when you traveled to Detroit for the 93-94 season, or when you were traded, I can't read his writing, sorry, traded for Dennis Rodman, did you have any idea that a trade was going down?
No.
No?
I had no idea. The old Spurs management told me at one point that they weren't going to trade me. Even though my name was in trade rumors all the time, I heard it all the time, they told me that they weren't going to trade me. And I was actually in Cancun, Mexico when the general manager called me and said, hey, we're trading you to Detroit. So that was I was blindsided.
That is awful. I think
that's part of the business.
Yeah, is it though? Like, do you get hung up on that kind of stuff, all the rumors, the gossip?
I think when you're young and immature, you do. When you get to my age, you realize that, that wasn't such a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a great learning lesson, but, once I look back on it sometimes and I say, it wasn't that big a deal, and I'm glad I learned from it, but it wasn't like this life-ruining thing that you go through that you think it is when you're 25 or 26 years old.
Yeah, so true, so true. Okay, next question from Shelly's husband. Sean, the following year, during the 1994-95 season, he's old school, when you were traded back to the Spurs, how disappointed were you when you found out that you were going to be traded to the Houston Rockets for Robert Horry?
Well, actually, I wasn't disappointed. That was my agent and I orchestrated that trade. So we were trying to get out of Detroit mid-season, and that's what that boiled down to. So I was more disappointed when the trade didn't go through and I had to go back to Detroit. And I told my agent at the time, I said, I'm just going to retire. I'm not going back there. And he said, no, you can't do that. Think about the long term, and we'll figure it out after the season. And sure enough, I was lucky enough that Pop came back to San Antonio, and that was an option for me.
we get so wrapped up in the lives of these players, and it's weird. It's almost like we're more attached to you guys, and you know, it is a business. You got to kind of separate yourself. Like whenever there's rumors about Tim going somewhere else or this and that, you're like, oh no, we don't want him to go. I don't think that's a good idea. You know, it's just crazy how involved we are.
Yeah, I mean that's the life of fans, and the players are like that too.
Yeah.
You know, we're human beings, and you know, when there are rumors about Timmy going somewhere, I was the same way. It's like, I don't want him to go anywhere, even though he's, you know, they call him the big ugly, and I want to slap him around half the time. You know, I don't want the big fella to go anywhere. But you know, when you know Timmy, you know how loyal a person he is. Yeah. I think we're all being kind of drummed up because I just, when it comes down to it, he's not that type of person. He wants to be somewhere and be in something and be a part of it for the long term.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we love him. All right, last question from Shelly's husband. Are you ready? All right, who do you like more, Don Harris or David Chancellor?
I would say that David is better looking than Don and probably has a better golf swing. Don, I've known Don, you know, since, well, way too long.
Yeah,
How's
way
that?
too long.
Yeah. So, with all that being said, I'm giving the check to Don.
Boom, I like it.
You're my man, Don.
We love them both. They're
I don't care how
great.
ugly you are and what people say about you. You're still my man.
That's right. That's right. All right. I guess we can just end this with a Go Spurs Go, right?
All right.
Make it happen?
That's right. Go Spurs, go!
Such a sweetheart. And of course, you can catch Sean tonight on Fox Sports Southwest as the Spurs take on the Heat right here in San Antonio.